Anyway, we decided to form this blues band. Two of us anyway, and a singer and a drummer and so forth. And we started playing, I think, in 1964, maybe it was 1963. And it was enjoyable, and it was kind of okay for me because it wasn't a struggle like, playing complex jazz chords and in different keys, because you tended to play in 2 or 3 keys. So we did actually quite well, and we played in some local working men's clubs. And then what happened that was kind of interesting is that this manager saw us somewhere, and he said that he was going to open a club in Bradford, and the club was named The Dungeon. So it was obviously a bit like the Cavern, just The Dungeon, and we were going to be the house band, and we were sort of going to open. And we were sort of okay. But what happened is we started getting really good gigs. We played at the A Go-Go in Newcastle with Memphis Slim. So I was very lucky I didn't have to play. And he's a marvelous blues player, and he just kind of enjoyed his accompaniment, the drummer. So we played at the Go-Go where the Animals are from. So it's the Animals Managers Club.
Right.
Played there. We also played in Edinburgh. We did play at the Cavern. So we had a gig at the Cavern. We opened for Jimmy Witherspoon, the blues singer. So I remember going to the Cavern, which was this will be 1964. It was kind of, to us, I know the Beatles were around, but we sort of really weren't interested in the Beatles because they were kind of like popular culture. We didn't like popular kind of culture or commercial culture. We were more like sort of supposedly folk blue, like purists. We got a gig at the Twisted Wheel, and there was 3 people playing. There was ourselves, Little Walter, and Alexis Corner. So when we got there, we found out that we were the band that was going to back Little Walter. So we were sort of young and innocent and naive, and we were really happy. Oh great, we're going to back Little Walter. So I think they kind of, I always think they held him captured in his room at the hotel to make sure he wasn't drinking or whatever it was. So Little Walter comes down and he says to me, I remember because he spoke to, he said, do you know some of my tunes? And we all said, oh yeah, we know My Babe. He said, good. He says, okay, let's start playing. He says, begin. He goes like counting. And I start playing, and he comes to me and says, that's not it. So he says, let's do it again, 1, 2, 3. And I started playing. He says, no, that's not it either. And I couldn't get the rhythm right. I couldn't get the rhythm. After a while, I couldn't play. It was like impossible. So it's and he said, I can't play with these guys. I can't play with these. And I can understand, why. We were just young kids. This is Little Walter, Muddy Waters harmonica player, and he had a fantastic band of his own. So what happened later on, which is quite amusing, Alexis Corner was supposed to come on, right? And then we'd sort of play, it was all-nighter. So Little Walter comes on it. Now it's Alexis Corner going to play with Little Walter. And what happened was kind of really interesting. Alexis Corner started playing, strumming this kind of shuffle beat like this. And I don't know if you remember his style. This is, what I kind of remember of his style, where he's trying to play a bit like John Lee Hooker. So what he was doing, he wasn't playing any changes. And then Little Walter looked at him like this, and Alexis Corner looked at him. They looked at each other, and they were like face to face on the stage. And Little Walter goes, changes, changes. And Alexis Corner did not refuse to do it. So Little Walter walked off. There's a big kerfuffle in the back. So what happened was Alexis Corner was taken off the stage, and we had to come on and back Little Walter. I remember we were very surprised he played Watermelon Man. but I kind of knew that from the jazz thing. It wasn't in our repertoire. But I do remember he didn't play so well because it's, you know, it was a kind of funny bit in it. So, you know, we ended up playing there. We played at Cavern. We opened for Charlie and Inez Fox, I think it was in Chelmsford or somewhere. We came down to London. We played at the Marquee. So when we played at the Marquee, the first guy that was on was Mose Allison. So Mose Allison was one of my heroes because he's a pianist, and you know, we used to really like Parchment Farm. So what we did, we loaded all our stuff, and then Mose Allison was the first act on, and then we were sort of on after him. But I think we were supposed to come on at 8 o'clock, and he was sort of playing and playing. You know, he's one of his solos, so I don't think he finished till 8:30. So we were kind of annoyed. So I was kind of annoyed at my, hero. I wanted him to get off now, let's get off, all that sort of stuff. So we played there. We played in some other gigs in London, in Kilburn, and where else did we play in? I think the 100 Club we played. Somewhere.
Did you play at the 100 Club by yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not totally sure about this because see what happened when we were driving down to London. We stopped at somewhere like Doncaster halfway to get some food or whatever it was. In the restaurant were the Pretty Things, and their van had broken down. So what we did is we gave them a lift. We gave them a lift to London, and they were very, very grateful. So I think they asked us to come to their studio. They were going to do some sort of recording. I think I played on some tracks, but whether they were ever ever released, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'd already knew Cyril Davis. I'd listened to his band. So my friend invited me down to London, so I went to the Marquee Club, and at that time you couldn't drink in the club, so there was Cyril Davis who was on first, right, and he was fantastic. Then he had a break, and then this other band came on. So I was listening to them. I said to my friend, I said, "Oh, these guys are out." I said, "I could easily play with them." I said, "They're okay. I wouldn't have a problem." So I went up to the guy. Funny how I remember this. And I said,
the singer. Right?
The singer, yeah. I said, "Do you think I could sit in with you?" And it's weird how I remember what he said. He said, "I'm sorry, but I don't think the management would like it," right? So anyway, if you shoot ahead to 30 years, to 1993, I met this same guy that I hadn't seen for 30 years, who I went to the Marquee with. And we sat down for dinner, and he said, "Do you remember going to the Marquee in 1963? I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you remember you went up and asked that guy to sit in?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you know who that was?" I said, "No, I've no idea." He said, "Well, that was Mick Jagger you asked." So I was kind of really astonished. Yeah, it was fun.